Welcome to the MD podcast with me, Martin Hartley, the Commercial Director for Imagine Consulting. We're a professional services consultancy. We specialize in providing high-value, low-population SMEs to the banking and financial services sector. Being a leader within the world's leading financial organizations is aspirational. However, few people make it to the top. The Imagine podcast will offer insightful, interesting, and frank discussions on the biggest issues facing directors and divisional leaders in the financial services sector. The show aims to inspire and educate future leaders by telling the career stories of today's leaders. I can't wait for today's episode. I'm joined by Gaurav Gooptu, MD Investment Banking at BNP Paribas. Gaurav, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for having me here.
Excellent. So as the listeners know, we'll look at the past, the present, the future. We'll end with my favorite part, which is the quickfire questions. But it'd be great to go back to the very beginning and just get an insight into your childhood. Essentially, that's where we like to start. So, tell me a bit about yourself. Let's go back to the very beginning. Where are you? Where are you from? Where were you born? Where are your family from?
So, Martin, going right back to the beginning, I grew up in India in a city called Kolkata. It used to be called Calcutta back in the day, but we changed the name since. Look, growing up, it was like any other child. I was fascinated by, what finance was, you always see the branch of a bank where you go in and you do your, you get your financial products. But what lay behind that, what lay behind the bank branch was something that always fascinated me. And I think that ultimately led me to do what I did. I grew up, I did my undergrad in economics, and then I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to try my luck at something I like and something I'm really inquisitive about. And that's where banking came in. And I started my career in India with Citi many moons ago with Citigroup. And then I moved to Singapore for a few years. And then traveled around the world, went to work for a few other banks, and ultimately ended up many years ago in London, and I've been here ever since. But what I'll say, and that's the interesting thing for me as I think about my journey, Martin, is, the world of finance is fascinating, and there are so many facets to it. You could be a commercial banker, you could be a retail banker, you could be an investment banker, you could be a private banker. It doesn't matter what you do, but at the end of the day, we are providing much needed services to institutions and people who really need them. And I think that was what really motivated me to grow up through the ranks and end up being where I am today.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that insight and that overview. A few interesting points that I want to pick up as we go through there is the motivation aspect is one point on it, because obviously, if you had that passion to deliver a good service from early on in your career, that helps move, that helps with the trajectory of your career. So we'll come back and we'll touch on that. But take me back to your childhood. Was anybody else in the family, mother, father, aunties, uncles, relatives, were they in the financial services sector?
Not really. Oddly enough, I come from a family of business people and academics. So I come from a family of we had a business in the family which was in real estate. So I didn't really grow up seeing finance. My sister, my cousins are all academics. They all teach. So I was a bit of the black sheep, wanting to go into the corporate world, leave the family, leave everything behind. Go and try what I would like to do in the corporate world. So no, it was entirely different. But the great thing was, and this is again very interesting. My parents initially they sort of thought I should do something different. Maybe I should try and get into what the family was doing. I should become an engineer because it helped to do what the family was doing. But at some point, much to their, I would say, disappointment, or at least, I would say, they had a different view of what they wanted me to do. I sort of sat them down and I said, look, I think I really want to do something different, and I don't think it's getting into what you guys have been doing. And that sort of led me to say, I want to do economics. And I did economics and mathematics, which was great fun. Economics is, for all of you budding, bankers, economics is often a very traditional education that people take before they go into finance. By no means is that the only way. I was saying this only to someone else. Some of the best hires I've made have been people who've done the arts. So there is no right or wrong. You could be studying geography, you could be studying economics, you could be an engineer. It doesn't matter. I took the route of economics. I really enjoyed it. And, since then, I have to say, I've been working in different banks for almost 2 decades now. So I have to say, I haven't really seen the inside of a building of an organization that isn't a financial one.
Yeah, no. It's interesting. A key point that I want to draw upon there is the background, the education for people coming through. Obviously, as you say, mathematics or economics are very traditional routes into it. But you mentioned there, some of your good hires have been from the arts. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that's really a really interesting point to people getting into the industry. Some people think, right, okay, if I didn't do those types of degrees, then it's not for me. Because it's an interest. My wife is a lawyer, and it's very much in her mindset that everyone, you did law because you want to be a lawyer. But then some of her friends that she went to law school with didn't pursue a career in that, but they've gone on to have excellent careers in other areas because that law degree really has helped propel them.
Absolutely. In fact, some of my very successful peers in banking have been lawyers. There are a number of lawyers who, because their education is grounded in corporate law around how companies work, they often move over to finance and banking and are very successful bankers. But look, coming back to the point of education, what I will say is, on behalf of our firms, I've been hiring. I used to run the school teams, and more about that later. For my grad school, I did my MBA at London Business School. So when I was in my prior firms, I used to lead the school team effort in hiring from number of institutions. And really, what you look for are people who are hungry, people who are thinking on their feet, who are analytical, and more importantly, people who have the right attitude and want to learn. I say this to everyone: there is nothing we do that can't be taught on the desk. So having an education in an economics or mathematics is of course helpful, but at the end of the day, if you've done geography and you've never opened a spreadsheet before, that's all right. We'll teach you on the job. What we really want to know is, do you have the right mindset to want to be able to do a good job and ultimately be able to provide advice to clients, because the role we do, it's all about providing high quality strategic advice to clients, to big companies, to institutions, to corporates, sometimes even to individuals, on what they should do. And if that's how you are able to think, it doesn't matter what you've studied.
Nice. So give us a little bit of insight into what that thought process needs to be. What attributes do you need to have?
Yeah. And look, I mean, in terms of attributes, what I've seen is a lot of people coming through the ranks. Often a few things which I also did when I was sort of, a junior wanting to get into the industry. A lot of it is about reading. I know reading is not fashionable anymore, but it is important to try.
Podcasts are though.
Yeah, podcasts are though, right? So podcasts, reading, whatever works for you. But be up to. I mean, even if it's watching, even if it's watching what's going on with the financial news, I always encourage younger people to keep up to date with what's going on in the global economy. The world economy is so intertwined. What happens when the US Fed says something about their sort of monetary policy, what they're doing with the interest rates? It impacts the treasury yields in the US. It has an impact everywhere in the world. Yeah. And I think it's extremely important that all of you sort of continue reading, continue listening to podcasts, getting to learn from others' experience. That's very important. I think the second thing is have a balance. I think one of the things which I learned when I was growing up is whatever profession you choose, and in the context of finance, look, finance and banking can be very demanding. You may need to put in the hard yards, especially early on in your career. But what's incredibly important is to have the right balance, make time for your family, your partners, your loved ones, because that's what keeps you going. And we've all heard stories of and seen people who've been burnt out by not doing exactly that. So I think it's important to keep the right balance. I'd say ask questions. I've always not been scared to ask questions, and sometimes people don't do enough of that because they think it makes them stand out in some way. It doesn't. In fact, when you ask the question, what you're doing is you are either reinforcing a belief or you're getting to know something new. And some of the best people I've seen are people who are not scared to ask questions, because those are the people who often, in front of a client, come up with some fascinating pieces of advice, and they're not scared to say things to a client which could be interesting. And finally, I'd say is and this is a view I've always had, is try and be an expert in something, whatever it may be. I think when you start your career, most people are generalists, and as you become more senior, often people will start specializing in a particular thing. For example, in investment banking, you could specialize in a product. When I say a product, you could be an M&A banker doing mergers and acquisitions. You could be in leverage finance. You could be in equity capital markets, and so on and so forth. Whatever you may want to be, whatever is your thing, try at some point. You will differentiate yourself. You will stand out if you are an expert in something, because that's when people will want to speak to you, want to know your views. And I think that's what I would encourage people to do. Develop an interest, learn up about it, and at some point put your hand up and say, this is what I really want to do. And that's how you'll succeed.
Completely. Obviously, managing and running our investment banking portfolio from a consultancy perspective, our entire business is based on SMEs, subject matter experts. So having that niche, that vertical, and that expertise in an area is ultimately what we do. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Okay, so how was school life for you? Just jumping back.
Yeah. So look, I started my career, as I was saying, after finishing economics. I was I worked in a bank for a few years, and then as is often the system in a lot of the US banks, they encourage you to go into an MBA at some point after you've done a few years. And I got the opportunity. I had an option to go to the United States and or come to the UK, and I chose to be in the UK. And it's a country I've loved from when I was very young. A lot of my family members have come to school here. My brother was at Oxford for many years, and growing up, I always used to visit him. So I've always wanted to come and study here. So look, I came to London, and I started at London Business School near Baker Street. I spent a couple of years there, did my MBA, had an absolute fantastic time. And I cannot encourage people enough to consider going to grad school at some point in their life. In the US, it's a lot more common. I think it's picking up in the UK and in Europe. But look, it's an amazing opportunity, because you're meeting a bunch of people who've had anywhere between, I'd say, 3 to 7 years in their career, who bring different perspectives from different industries, who come from different countries. That in my cohort at London Business School, we had people from 52 countries. So just sitting in the classroom, you heard, when you were when you were studying about a case, you heard fascinating perspectives from someone in Mexico about how, their family run a business versus someone doing the same in Hong Kong. So it's just, you get to learn by just participating in those discussions. So look, I finished 2 years at London Business School, and then I went and started working for Deutsche Bank in London in the investment banking division. And I enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun. It was sort of my first role in the UK.
Yeah.
And of course, as with starting in a new geography, it comes with its challenges. It's a new environment, new set of clients. and lots of long hours. Back in the day when we were juniors, we used to burn the midnight oil literally, and usually there were lots of dinners at your desk in office, but it was a lot of fun. You got to know your co-workers really well, so that was great fun. And then just moved on from there. After a few years, I got a great opportunity to be at Barclays, which again was building out its European investment banking platform. Moved there end of 2010, and was there for literally a decade. Fantastic. Was in the M&A group, was in advisory, spent time with clients in the consumer and retail space, with sort of clients in the telecom, media, and technology space. So it was just amazing. Did a bunch of deals, and that sort of was my history before I finally moved to BNP about 12 months ago.
And just on the space that you were in, obviously the consumer retail and leisure space at Deutsche Bank, and then obviously similar but in more M&A in Barclays. Why did you choose that space, or did it choose you? How did that come about?
It was a bit of both, actually. So I think one of the things I always find very fascinating about sort of consumer retail leisure is, and I say this to all incoming graduates, is that it's everything you see and you feel. So sometimes when you think about other industries, you probably, it's hard to visualize, but the things we do are, for example, things that you use in your home, things that you consume. So one of the big practices we have are around food and beverages, right? So everything you consume, and be it luxury products, be it, anything you use to clean your home, the food and beverage you consume, ingredients. So it's for me, what attracted me to this particular area was, as a consumer, I know exactly what I'm getting. I see these products every day. So it's really great to be able to go into a boardroom and advise a client or an institution that actually runs a company that manufactures all the products that I use every day. So it was a very,
brings it to life.
It was that, yeah, it was a very, the feel, the touch and feel element of everything. I'm doing something that I use every day as a consumer was something I found very attractive, and I did that at Deutsche, and I loved that. A lot of the things I did were in consumer products, and and I think it was a bit of as you were saying, them finding me as well. I met the team there. We got along really well, and this is something which I'd say to all people looking to enter the industry. As much as it is about you finding the right or the firm finding you and liking you, it is as important for you to meet the team you'll be working in, to get to know them, to like them, because trust me, if you don't get along with people you'll be spending 14 hours a day with, you really don't want to be in that job.
Yeah. You almost need to like them more than your family, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you, obviously you talked about the types of products that were involved in the deals there. Is it possible to give us an example of one of the deals and bring that to life for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So look, I'd say a deal that we can talk about more recently at BNP. I advised an energy drink company that was a European energy drink company that recently got bought out by a Danish beverage player. And I was advising the Nordic company. So we were advising the sellers. So this is where the product was pure M&A. We were helping our client sell their business to someone else. So the way any such process would run, we sort of pitched for the business to our client, who met a few other banks, and they felt we brought a few things to the table. We brought at BNP, we brought the ability to look at the entire buyer landscape and identify who would be the right acquirers for a business like this. We really understood the sector well, and what they felt we could do is get best value for them. Because at the end of the day, as a seller, it's like any other product, right? I mean, if I'm selling I'm selling a piece of furniture, it's no different from one selling a company worth hundreds of millions, right? They want to get the best value for their company. They build the company up from scratch. And they felt that we were able to deliver that. And look, after we won the mandate, we then... How
many people are involved in the team for that?
So it was me. I was running and leading the team. I had a couple of I had three other people in the team who were a director, an associate, and an analyst who were working with me on executing the deal. Yep. And they sat in the M&A group, and they partnered with me, and together we helped our client on valuation, on identifying who would be the potential buyers for a business like this. On building out what we call the information memorandum. That's something we do in banking. When we're selling a business, we write up a long document about which basically gives any potential buyer all the details they need to know about the business. It talks about the industry, about the company, about the financials, about the management, about the future prospects. Everything is in one document. Yep. So we did all of that. We then met a bunch of buyers. We identified who were the realistic bona fide buyers who could pay up. And then, typically, as in these processes, buyers submit a bid, which is non-binding in nature. We then look at all the bids, and then we say, look, these 2 or 3 buyers are really credible. They can pay up the most. Let's take them into the next round. Yeah. And then in the next round, we allow them the opportunity to do further diligence. And at the end of it, the buyer that pays up the most, and really the buyer that management feel more comfortable with, because at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, management will stay on. So they too want to work with a buyer that they get on with, and they sold the business to that company, and it was a fantastic outcome because the client, the owners of the company, got great value. They got significantly more value than they originally thought they would get, and we at BNP helped create that environment and competitive tension for them to get that value. The buyer was very happy because they wanted to expand in a particular region, in a particular product, and they were to acquire a fast-growing brand in that category. So look, that's typically what you do in a typical M&A sell side process, where a small team helps a company or an institution sell a business to another company.
No, it sounds really exciting. And how long did that process take?
So that process end to end would have taken about 6 months. That's typically the life cycle of a deal, Martin. So we pitched in December of last year. We won the mandate, and then you sort of go away for Christmas, and then we started engaging with management in the new year to sort of write up all the financial documents. There were also, remember, in processes such as this, you will also have an external accounting agency that will come and audit the accounts and put together a vendor report on the business that you also share with the acquirer. So that took a few months. February or March, we started reaching out to all the potential buyers, and we talked to them and said, look, hey, this business is coming to the market. It's really great management team, fast growing business. Do you want to have a look? And then, that process went on for another few months. And then we had a final process of, negotiation right at the end. So once you've identified the right buyer's agreed a price, you typically have 2 weeks right at the end where everyone gets into this room, typically in the lawyer's offices, where
mediation room.
Yeah, and you negotiate something called the share purchase agreement, which is basically the document that contractually hands over the keys of the company from the seller to the buyer, and you negotiate that. There are a number of clauses which the bankers and the lawyers help both sides go through, and then at the end of it, you shake hands, you take some nice photographs, you have a few drinks, and the deal's done.
Nice. Okay. And how do BNP get paid from that? Is it commission type based, or is it set fee?
Yeah, look, it's market standard. I mean, not specific to BNP. It's fairly market standard. So typically for any, so these are what we call M&A or advisory deals. For these deals, typically it's fairly market standard, where you get paid a percentage of the value of the deal. So if you're selling a deal for 10, you will typically negotiate a value where you get, a percentage of that. And that varies widely across the industry, across products, across sell and buy side, across geographies as well. Yeah. So US fees in the United States tend to be historically significantly higher than fees in Europe. That's just a market structure point. So it comes down to that. But typically, it's a percentage of the value. And remember, this is all fees linked to advice and execution around the deal. This is not in any way linked to a lending product. This is purely and which is why human capital is so important in our industry, right? At the end of the day, the client is paying for these 3 or 4 people who are helping them on something which is so important. Think about it. If you built out a business from scratch, you are entrusting a bank or an institution to sell it for you. I mean, this is your life's work, right? It's super important. So people, what we see is clients really don't mind paying fees because often what they realize is they get really great service and they get top quality advice in exchange for that.
Yeah, but they're buying people, aren't they? People buy from people, so people are buying you. Doesn't matter what badge you're wearing, essentially, right?
Yes, and in a lot of cases, when after you've done what you've done for many years, you become an expert. To my earlier point, you become a subject matter expert. Then what people do is, you obviously sit under the umbrella, and people often want to sort of buy your services because you're the expert, whether it's in an M&A or an ECM or a sector, whatever you bring to the table, and that's why team play is so important. When we pitch, Martin, you will always have 3 or 4 experts in the room together. So for example, if I'm pitching an ECM deal, an equity capital markets deal, where a company wants to IPO in the public markets, I'll take my ECM expert, I'll be the sector expert, I'll take someone who knows the country really well. So, we'll all be part of a team. Investment banking is, and to be honest, any financial services or any service organization is all about winning as a team. You just can't do it on your own.
Yeah, completely. I mean, that's our mantra at Imagine. It's all about collaboration and cooperation, and we'll talk about working remotely and moving to the COVID space, but we had to completely rethink and realign our processes immediately as soon as we started working from home, which actually have been more beneficial. And I think we actually work more collaboratively now because people understand the importance of it. But like you say, if we're going into pitch for a piece of work with any of the banks that we work with, obviously most of the ones that you've worked at yourself, it's about having the SME in that space, the SME of that technology, of that business line, the person that can deliver on it, put the deal together. So yeah, it's all about the teamwork, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, really important point. Okay, so a decade at Barclays, you moved to BNP. What was the attraction there? Why move when things were good at Barclays?
So look, I mean, absolutely. I have such fond memories of Barclays. It was fantastic. I had 10 of my best years in my career at Barclays. It was just that I wanted to sort of take up a fresh challenge. And sometimes, it's like with all of us. 10 years, you've been in the same seat, and you go into the same, you take the same train every morning, you go into the same office, and sometimes, you just feel maybe it's a good time for a new challenge. So look, BNP came up as an interesting opportunity because, as an institution, they are really investing and have been significantly investing in growing their platform in the last 2 years. BNP's got a stated ambition of being a top player in European investment banking over the next few years. And a lot of that will be led by, high value, high margin products such as mergers and acquisitions, ECM, advisory-led products and not lending-led products. And they were looking to build out a really strong platform in the UK, based out of UK with UK-based bankers. And I got the opportunity to sort of come and make a real difference. Lots of clients that needed to be banked, that needed to be advised, and really an opportunity to grow fast and do things in a very with a growth mindset, because BNP right now is investing. And I think that there's a plan to do fantastic things and gain market share over the next 5 years. So look, that attracted me. There were some ex-colleagues of mine who were already at BNP, and that also helps significantly. What I'll tell young people is, if you've got 3 or 4 options in terms of where you want to go, and I had that opportunity when I was considering my options. I had a couple of other options as well. But what really swayed it in the end was there were ex-colleagues of mine who are at BNP, and just having that coffee chat with them, and they tell you, this is what life really is in, and they give you the real picture. And I found that really helpful. So when you have opportunities, always take the time to go and meet people. Don't be scared to ask for a coffee chat to, one of the MDs in the group that you might be considering joining. And, just spending 30 minutes with that individual give you a great insight into what is this team really like? What's the culture like? Do I want to be, working with this individual and that team? And I think ultimately that's what swayed it. It's the people. I was in Paris. I met a bunch of my current colleagues, then future colleagues. I loved all of them. I just felt, I can get along with this bunch. And, ultimately that's what swayed me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, couple of minutes on the MD status then. Was it something you always aspired to do? What sacrifices did you make to get there? What are the key challenges, and what are the successes and the celebrations of being an MD? So I just want to cover those 4 angles.
Yeah. Look, when you join an institution, you always aspire to get to the top. And in investment banking, typically managing director has always been very coveted, because that's when you've sort of reached, you can always grow in the managing director role, but at least, that's sort of the pinnacle most people aspire to reach when they join the industry. And of course, it was very pleasing, and it was something that I cherished. And yeah, I'm not going to complain. I went out and had a few drinks, when I found out that I'd got the title. So that's something that is an achievement. And, I'd encourage everyone to stay around long enough to do that, because it does take time. It's not something that happens in the first 3 or 5 years. It's usually, 12 to 15 years into your career is when you sort of get to that, typically is a rule of thumb. What I will say though is, look, there are challenges as a junior banker. As I was probably saying, look, you will have to work long hours. You will have to learn things you don't know. You will be thrust into challenging situations where you may have a client ask you a question that you don't know the answer to. So those are all things that you will go through, and those will make you so much more complete as a professional, as an individual, as a human being. Because I always say this, there are many great professions, but the one thing that finance and investment banking does is, because it gets together a bunch of really smart people all under the same roof, you get the opportunity to learn from each other. And I think that's been one of my biggest takeaways, that learning from others, and don't be scared to learn from others. So I think that's been really, really good. And look, there will be sacrifices along the way. There have been times when I haven't gotten a proper night's sleep, or I've not been able to attend my mates' birthday parties. Those are things that happen. But then, to your point, Martin, when you start becoming a little more senior, and I saw that with my career, once you become a VP and you become more senior, you naturally have a lot more control of your life, because then, you know what you're doing. You've been in the industry for a while. You're a lot more efficient. You're a lot more effective. You then typically have a team working with you, and, you can plan your life a little better. It does get a lot better. You get to spend a lot more time with your friends and family. And obviously, as an MD, one of the things I'll say as a director and an MD, it's not on now, but travel is a great part of our life. Just getting on a flight, going to Japan for business meetings, getting to savor the local culture, going out with your local colleagues to see, to go to a nice place. That's all great fun. So look, I've traveled around the world to the West and to the East, to meetings, to execute deals. So that's ultimately one of the perks, and something you really have fun doing when you become a little more senior.
Completely. And what's your family support bubble? What's that like?
Look, family support is great. Look, I will say, my family, my partner, my friends, they are really supportive. And just recently, we were away for a weekend somewhere, and we were in a zone where there was literally no internet. I was not getting any internet, and I just had to do an incredibly important call. And, my family was really supportive. Look, I was driving and I said, look, guys, I can see a hill up there, and this hill is really, really tall. And I can see a couple of teenagers having pints on the top of the hill. I think I'll get internet connection there. So I parked on the side of the road and I said, you got to give me an hour. Please spend the time in the car, walk around. And they were all like, you need to do what you need to do. We are supportive. And I literally went to the top of the hill with my phone. I got my connection, did my call, and came back. And look, this is very important. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a supportive set of friends and family around you, because at the end of the day, you need that all the time, because you'll have some hard times in any profession, but you also need to spend enough time with them to take your mind off things, because ultimately you need to balance out your work and your life away from work.
Completely. It's so important, isn't it? It's so important at any level. As I'm keen into sports and looking at management and leadership within the sporting environment, and Sir Alex Ferguson always used to try and get his players coupled up early days, have some children, stop them going out to nightclubs, keep them in the family, keep them centered, grounded, make sure that they were kind and respectful to everyone. So I think having that support bubble there to allow you to do what you do and flourish, right? I think it's really important. So that's cool. It's very kind of them. I'm sure walking around a random hill was really enjoyable. Okay, so next topic is, obviously we've gone through drastic changes in the last 18 months to the way the world's worked. Investment banking was typically not something that was done remotely. How has that affected you? How has it changed you? And what do you think will be the new norm moving forward?
Look, this is the topic of the hour, isn't it? Just going back, when I started at BNP, it was exactly sort of 12 months to the day. So I did start remotely. I started from my study. And look, it was a new normal for me, because in my prior firm, I'd been there for 20 years. I knew everyone, right? I knew everyone. I was a piece of the furniture, but here it was literally starting afresh. So, I think what we realized is video calls save the day. So, the different platforms that the institutions use. I spent a lot of time using those platforms, getting to know my colleagues all around the world. So that was a great way to introduce myself. And then slowly, when things got better, I started going into office. And right now I go in, depending on the workload I have, internal meetings, client meetings. If I'm meeting someone in person, I try and go in 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how work is. And look, I'm enjoying it. I encourage my team. So I've got a team of about 7 or 8 people who work directly with me every day. And I encourage them to sort of, come in on the same days, because what happens is you then build a sense of camaraderie. Everyone comes in, we get to see each other. We are planning a summer social, so we'll go out, play some fun sports together, get a meal together. These are all important things. And I think we're all recognizing that, working from home and remotely is efficient. And at the end of the day, it was the need of the hour. But as we get back to normalcy, and especially in our profession where we are trusted advisors, sometimes a trusted advice is given quietly, face to face, in the corner of a room, rather than on a video call with 10 other people. That's just the nature of the work. So I think we're all enjoying getting back together some days a week. And look, in terms of what will look like, Martin, my sense is, I don't think 100% of the people will go back to work 100% of the time in the future. I just don't think that's going to happen. That's my view. And I think that ultimately there will be a hybrid model that might emerge. And of course, this is not talking on behalf of any institution. Every institution will have their own policy. But what we're increasingly seeing is, we've seen that a lot of people have been moving away from city centers. People have been moving away. You see rents in central London go down because people want bigger houses. They want studies in their home, and they're able to do that living slightly outside London. people want to work from other places, right? I mean, the US, we're seeing so many people who work in finance in New York, but who live in Miami, right? They want to be on the beach, and
why not?
And why not? Exactly. So I think, look, I think ultimately it'll come down to the success of the vaccine and how comfortable we as a society feel about getting back. But my sense is that at some point we will stabilize at a hybrid model. But for me personally, look, I'd like to be back to the old way more than the new way, because I just feel it's, for me personally, it gets my juices flowing to see all my colleagues around me, to be in front of clients, to do things. But look, each one to their own, and obviously every institution will have their own policies around that.
Absolutely. Really insightful stuff. Thank you very much. Now to my favorite part, quickfire questions. First thing that comes into your head, 3 pieces of advice you would give your younger self or the next generation coming through.
Okay, here you go. 1, there are usually no shortcuts, or a lot of people would have found it before you.
Great piece.
Number 2, it is okay to fail, and fail many times. Don't let that bring you down. And number 3 is very important. Have fun. And if you're not having fun, find something else to do.
Love that. Wholeheartedly agree. 3 resources you use for self-development: books, podcasts, publications, websites, peers.
Okay. 3 things. Okay. Number 1, it's the Knowledge Project. It's a series of podcasts about mastering the best of what other people have figured out in you. Number 2, it's a book I recently read, 100-Year Life by Linda Grattan and Andrew Scott. It talks about the fact that we'll all live longer. We need to reskill ourselves, every sort of throughout our entire career. And the last thing, an interesting book about, I think it's relevant to everyone. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. It's all about, how you make the best of what you have, and working through the challenges of life. So look, I could recommend these 3 resources to people if they have a bit of time.
Great, brilliant. And the last one, who's your role model and why?
So, when I think about role models, I always think about sports persons. And for me, I think the role model I have in mind, and this is very topical, is Novak Djokovic. And and look, I mean, obviously he recently won Wimbledon, so I'm sure he's fresh on everyone's mind. And the reason he is a role model is because if you see his journey, he was growing up when his country was going through war.
Yeah.
And he sort of had a hard upbringing, and his parents had to sort of wait tables to get him the right sort of coaching. But then when he sort of got out, it was that single-minded motivation. He loved tennis, and he was saying that when I was 7-year-old, I used to make a replica of the Wimbledon trophy in my bedroom, right, with whatever I had, and that's the aspiration the guy had, right, and to have that motivation and the determination to come on to win, and challenge the 2 other greats of the era. And the other thing is, of course, adversity. Look, I mean, he is someone who had a lot of adversity in his life. He had significant injuries for a while. He dropped out of the top 5. He wasn't winning matches. And then he came back and he changed the way he was doing things. So it's that journey of someone at the top of their game who really didn't start there, and who, in spite of all adversity, Martin, just learned along the way. And really at the end, and the other thing I'd say is someone who continues to be humble. I think that's very important. To have humility, even when you are so successful, you're so loved, is so important. So look, he's someone I look up to.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one, actually. I live in Wimbledon, so
you do.
It's been very, very topical for the last 2 weeks. It's been a great buzz about the place, good atmosphere. He's an interesting one as well, isn't he? Because he's not necessarily loved by the crowd, and I think he struggles with that. But then I like the way he's almost trying to adapt, because I don't think it's naturally his game to be almost an extrovert. He's quite introverted, isn't he? So sometimes you think, like, what he must think, well, what more have I got to do? Like, what have I got to do? Come on. It's and you always get that. Obviously, it's a bit of British culture where people will go for the underdog, and obviously there was an underdog against him on Sunday. which just, turned out to be a very good day for the Italians, but we won't go there, will we?
Yeah, we won't go there.
But no, I think it's a really interesting role model, an unbelievable athlete, does lots and lots of good stuff for charities and away from the court as well. So yeah, great. Gaurav, that's us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have really, really enjoyed listening to your insights, sharing your stories. I think some great key learns there for people entering the industry or wanting to enter the industry, or grads coming through. So thank you very much. I'm sure, obviously, if anyone wants to pick your brains or ask you any questions, they can reach out to you on LinkedIn. But it's been great having you on. So thank you very much. And to the listeners, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Gaurav, thank you very much.